You're watching Reality Check. Tonight, the government has moved to scrap retrospective tax, that controversial UPA-era backdated tax that had become emblematic of the perils of doing business in India. The tax, the brainchild of then Finance Minister Pranab Mukherjee, was imposed on companies that had conducted transactions with companies not registered in India. The government had amended tax laws so that they could retrospectively tax such transactions, arguing that these foreign registered companies had underlying Indian assets and therefore could be taxed in India. Those hardest hit were telecom giant Vodafone and energy giant Cairn, who were taxed billions of dollars for acquisitions with offshore entities. Even though the BJP government said they were against retrospective tax, it remained on the books. Eventually, Vodafone and Cairn separately sued India in international tribunals and in the course of the past 7 months won massive penalties against the government. Now, it was India that found itself facing the embarrassing prospect of having some of its overseas assets seized against these penalties, including the assets of Air India in foreign capitals. It's against this backdrop that the government appears to have scrapped the tax and even promised refunds to these companies, running into thousands of crores of rupees if these companies agree to withdraw their cases and all the litigation. Also, for context, just a few days ago, Kumar Birla of Vodafone Idea, a letter from him had gone public where he'd written to the government saying Vodafone is completely cash strapped and the government should take it over. This, of course, has to do with the very volatile and difficult environment of which telecom companies have been operating. But the question also is whether that was at all a factor in the decision and whether now all of this refund that would accrue to Vodafone, the parent Vodafone, would that help here the cash-strapped Vodafone Idea? Let's just listen in now to my colleague Sunil Prabhu, who interviewed Revenue Secretary Tarun Bajaj just a short while ago on what exactly this decision meant. What is the signal that the government is trying to send?
This decision was already taken earlier, so it was, you all are just following up on whatever was earlier taken in discussions with the government.
No, Sunil, what I'm trying to say is in 2014, this was the commitment of the government. So the commitment gets fulfilled now. In the meantime, the arbitration cases, which were a legacy cases were continuing. So that is the reason that a decision could not be taken during that period. Once that was over, the government took a decision.
In effect, what this new law which has been introduced will mean basically Vodafone and Cairn, those cases will be ended and you will pay them back, some of them in the case of Cairn, and in Vodafone you will not ask them to give any money. It will be without interest. Just clarify that what is the cost to the exchequer?
The cost to the exchequer in a sense would be not because the amount that was collected will be returned. So it is not that something is being paid out of.
So how much will you be returning?
So in total there are about 4 cases and the biggest case is the Cairn case. The total would be close to about 8,000 crores. But let me say this again to you that 8,000 crores for a sovereign is immaterial. What is material is that a message that you want to give to the foreign investors and even investors domestically that yes, we believe in stability of the tax regime.
All right, joining me tonight on Reality Check, have with us Anuradha Dutt, Senior Partner, DMD Advocates, and also Counsel for Vodafone. We have Sachit Jolly with us, Corporate Lawyer, and Praveen Chakravarti of the Congress Party. We will also be joined by Gurcharan Das shortly. Thank you all so much for being here. Anuradha Dutt, you are understandably looking quite pleased. There's been a series, Anuradha Dutt, where you've had big wins. You were, I believe, instrumental in winning that big arbitration against the Indian government for Vodafone. And now this. Tell us, were you almost expecting this after what happened in that arbitration? India lost both to Vodafone and Cairn. What were your first thoughts when you heard this news today?
So, I must say I'm surprised, but I'm very happy. Because I think what was in question was whether India is committed to a rule of law. That had come into question in 2012 because your apex court says that no, this transaction is not taxable,
Right.
and therefore you don't have to pay tax.
This is the
As
Vodafone
the-
Hutchison transaction, just to.
Yes, and therefore they declared that law as it stands, in future you can do it. You know, nobody can tell India, don't do it prospectively. But don't do it retrospectively was what Supreme Court said. You brought about an amendment in 2012, and that too, you know, it was not mentioned in the speech at all. And when you went into the details, you found that there was a retrospective amendment from 62. You know, you took it back so many years saying, yes, this was
1962.
always the intention.
Yeah.
Now, that actually created a lot of issues with investors because it looked, apart from tax certainty, it also gives you as if India has no respect for rule of law.
Right.
These are issues which, you know, severely affected the mood, the sentiment of the investors. Thereafter, you know, we had advised Vodafone to file a BIT arbitration.
Okay.
Now, I remember in 2014 elections, even Congress party said this is wrong. Every party, even BJP said it's wrong, Congress said it's wrong, most parties said it's wrong, put it in their agenda that, you know, we will not do this kind of tax terrorism as it's called.
Correct.
But when in 2014, when BJP won, I thought that was a chance they had to undo this amendment. But, you know, whatever are the political motivations. But Mr. Arun Jaitley at that time made a speech which I remember listening to.
Yes.
And he said, we'll stand by the adjudication. Now, when we succeeded, we did think that this will come through, but again the initiative was not seized, and I personally think that it's the Prime Minister, at that level this decision has come, because I personally believe, I have nothing against the tax office, but I think tax officers believed that no, they are right. They first brought in retrospective amendment, then when they lost, they challenged it in Singapore. And
You think the Prime Minister himself it's been scrapped at the behest of the Prime Minister?
I think so, that it has to be at that level. You see.
But let me ask you this, Anuradha, that just for those who don't know, the big win that you had against India in the arbitration tribunal, I believe that was somewhere towards the end of last year, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes.
Now, there the tribunal ruled that this retrospective taxation of that Vodafone Hutchison deal was completely wrong. Is that right?
Yes. It's not just this transaction. As you know, in Kane case, it's even worse. They did actually an internal reorganization in 2007. Even that was held to be. So, once you implement a retrospective amendment, then, you know, the tax office is bound to follow it.
And these tribunals levied millions of dollars of penalty on India.
No, so I want to correct you there.
Yes, tell me.
Because you are saying that, Vodafone will be refunded. Now, Vodafone, they never collected any tax from Vodafone.
Right.
So, there is no question of refund. The award does not deal because they never appropriated any money.
You're right.
It only gives us,
Cairn will be refunded. Yes.
That because they attached their money.
Yes.
And sold their shares in Vedanta Cairn, and they also took away the monies that lie in escrow.
That's what we just heard. In fact, the Revenue Secretary say that would cost the government possibly about 8,000 crores. Let me just come back to you.
No, I'm sorry. One second.
Yes.
How does it cost? You have taken a wrong action.
Okay, fine.
And then when you're
you're being a real lawyer on the show tonight.
No, I'm not.
Okay, it's not a cost. You're just refunding. Fair enough.
Yes.
Accepted. Praveen Chakravarti, this was a decision. It was one of those decisions of the government, of the then Congress government of late Pranab Mukherjee, with all God respect to him, soul, that I think there was an immense amount of internal opposition against this, even within the Congress. I believe even the then Prime Minister, Dr. Singh, wasn't very thrilled, but it did go through, and now it's gone.
Sure, but I'm not going to indulge on the real politique of the 2012 decision, and I have to clarify, I'm not even speaking on an official basis for the party. I'm speaking more as an economist at this point in time. But I think it's fair to say that the decision did cost India from an investment climate, and what it did to the overall investment climate. And I think it's fair to say, I think the issue was not, like the previous panelist said, the issue is not about whether India has the right to tax or not, whether it can apply it retrospectively.
Sure.
And I think that is that is quite. And certainty of doing business is actually very, very, very important, as any economist would tell you. And I think it casts some aspersions around that part. Having said that, I think one does wonder, why this decision today? Why did it take?
But before we come to why,
7 years.
Before we come to why, I just want to ask you, Dr. Manmohan Singh, has he got news of this? And if so, what are his thoughts?
I can share with you that I just spoke to him about 20 minutes ago to update him of this government announcement. He had not heard of it, so I just updated him about the government announcement. He hadn't had a chance to read the full order, so as typical of him, he would not comment until he had gone through all the details.
Okay.
But he is aware of the government announcement. And so,
and what did he say? What were his thoughts? Was he pleased?
I mean, no, he was surprised that there was an announcement that has come, and he said he will take a look at it.
Okay.
But like I said, I think it's to the extent that it can marginally improve the overall business environment in the country, I think that's certainly welcome from all points of view.
In fact,
of course, there are lots of other questions that come up.
Let's come to those questions in a second. But the fact is, we actually put up on that screen, Sachit Jolly, that Pranab Mukherjee in his memoirs actually acknowledged that almost everyone within his own cabinet was against it. Dr. Manmohan Singh said this will hit foreign direct investment inflows. Other cabinet colleagues were concerned. Some of them, he says, one of them actually brought a Vodafone representative just before the amendment, the bill was to be tabled, but he went ahead. But now you think, Sachit Jolly, it's still, is it too late now to course correct, or it's never too late?
Well, I would believe it's never too late to course correct. I think it's an excellent opportunity right now. Investors are looking beyond China. They're looking at an alternative, especially after COVID. I think I would think it would, if it was 6 months, a year, 2 years back, it would have been even better. But I think there is no bad time for this course correction. It would give a great impetus to investments right now.
Right.
So really, I can't have any complaints about it.
Okay. Gurcharan Das is with us, author, former CEO of Procter & Gamble. Gurcharan Das, it's interesting that with the government, you have to first take a few blows before you. First, you say, as Anuradha was saying in the introductory comments, the BJP also said it's terrible tax terrorism, we'll scrap it. Didn't scrap it. Had to face a series of humiliating setbacks in international tribunals. Forced to pay millions of dollars, assets being seized overseas, and then finally knuckles down instead of doing this years ago.
Yeah, it's very good news, first of all. One should really celebrate.
Sure.
It's a very, very important thing.
Sure.
This is the kind, there's things like this that give India a bad name. And we have suffered since 2012 from the bad image that it has created, that India is no longer a predictable, reliable country to do business in. And frankly, we are fortunate that a lot of investment has come in after that. But every time when I meet an investor, they bring this up. It's like the meddling they're doing on e-commerce. It's giving country such a bad name. And the fact of the matter is that India deserves better. And this is probably the worst action that that Pranab Mukherjee took in his lifetime. And the country has suffered so badly. Jet Li promised to get rid of it. He didn't do it. At least now, one should congratulate Nirmala Sitharaman to have actually done it, what Jet Li did not do. But you're absolutely right. It's shameful that we have to be pushed against the wall, humiliated around the world, and then only we will do what is right. And meantime, the impact of tax terrorism, all these things are there.
Another that I wanted to ask you, do you think that if you, when I say you, I mean Vodafone Cairn had not won those big decisions, verdicts against the government, that they would have done this?
Probably not, but it wasn't to be, so we can't test it. But, apart from certainty in tax, rule of law, there's one more important message that, India signed a bilateral investment treaty with several countries. And usually governments, big countries will acknowledge, okay, this is the award, let's close the issue. So another message that India is giving out is that if we sign a treaty where we agree for, international arbitration, we'll stand by it. So I think that's also an important point.
Okay, but is it fair to say that Vodafone would accept the terms of this of the sort of the proposal by the government that says, look, we will withdraw all our claims against you and you can drop all litigation? Is that, yes?
So there is a little bit of devil in the details.
Okay.
What it's talking about, that's why I don't know. I mean, apart from the fact that the bill has to become an act.
Yes.
They're talking about some undertakings to be given.
Yes.
So now my problem is that one can very clearly see the intention of this government. Now it's going to be implemented by tax officers. I really hope that, the implementation, the spirit is the same as what the legislative intent is. And, if you say I should withdraw, say, let's take an example of Vodafone. What did it withdraw? You are the ones who you have to withdraw. So I don't know what they're saying. So that kind of detailing we still have to wait for.
Okay, last word from you, Pravin Chakravarti.
But one thing I want to tell you, that you are also saying, does it have anything to do with Mr. Birla? And I don't think so, because the Indian company has its own issues.
You're right.
All telecos are having their issues.
I agree. I agree. It's just the timing of the two, that's all. But last word, Pravin Chakravarti. Do you think that this could be used by the government to say this was a terrible UPA era decision which we have now scrapped and use a political advantage?
No, see, I think, can you hear me? I think there's no hesitation in kind of saying that this was perhaps not a, this was not perhaps a good economic law in hindsight. But then I think my simple question is, I think everybody kind of acknowledged by 2014 that this law should go. The question was in 2016, the finance minister, the finance minister Arun Jaitley actually said, pay up the arrears. I will give you a waiver of interest and penalty, but pay up the arrears.
We're out of time. I see what you're saying, but I'm being told repeatedly we're out of time. The sort of politics of this will now follow. But thank you all so much for joining us tonight on the show. Thanks very much indeed.